This is very simple stuff. You've been fed so much horse pucky, and it's going to really come out as you realize just how bad and backward joke Russia is. It's a joke. It's fake. China is fake. They're fake enemies propped up by the East India Trading Company, sucking out the tech. The United States should be dominating, God willing, dominating the planet with its constitution front and center and actually following it. Get rid of the foundation systems, the think tank systems, the banking and financial class, not just the Fed, the whole damn thing. Remember, they wanted to forge the multipolar world order. If we see the US stay in Eurasia, they won't be able to forge the multipolar world order. It means something has changed. Remember, that vast managerial class of the United States, billionaires and millionaires, they're going to lose everything. Jeff Bezos is going to run it all. Everyone's getting a section as they break up the Planetary Trading Guild into each section to lock people up in the UN smart cities and probably vaccinate them to death. And there's going to be good old Jeff Bezos and people like a Fred Smith and FedEx and all these other companies are looking, going, the centralization of the means of production, the means of transaction, the means of movement, all into one single company or just several, all owned by the same people. They're not happy about it. They will fall into our laps and they are going to respond to pressure. So let's watch Rupert Murdoch and let's watch eventually Heinz Kissinger's going to come out. You wait for the narrative to change. It's going to come out. It's not a dog whistle, I don't believe, but be aware of dog whistles. Be very cautious. The data analytics are extremely powerful. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, we are away. We've got a big show today, but I'm going to keep it down to 1 hour. My name is Brendan Lee O'Connell. I'm an Australian citizen on the run. Yes, that is correct. But sitting, but on the run nonetheless. We are going to talk about Ukraine, the possibility of Putin using a tactical nuke. We're going to talk about just the horse-pucky idiocy that has gone around. Putin's going to take over the world. Putin's going to teach them all a lesson. It was just ridiculous. What's going on in the grand picture? Is Europe going to run out of energy? We're going to talk about the Queen briefly, Prince Charles and the Jewish lobby. We're going to talk about 9/11. I meant to do this yesterday. Sorry, I got caught up in moving with my Illuminati wheelbarrow. I'm going to show you my beautiful new wheelbarrow the Illuminati paid for to move my stuff. We're going to talk about a whole host of things. The technology transfer is slowly getting out there. Fox News is adopting a narrative that is highly suspicious, meaning it's like they're edging closer and closer to admitting a semblance of the truth. We, of course, need to remind ourselves what the truth sounds like. Got a couple of great, really good articles on the East India Trading Company, Masonic lodges in places like India and elsewhere, and really a whole host of stuff. And again, we'll end with a conclusion and we'll ask ourselves, what does the truth really sound like? The Fed is moving towards CBDCs, which will probably be integrated this year sometime. What does it all mean? Well, let's find out. But before we do, let's just double check the date. The date is, of course, it is Monday, September the 12th, 2022. It is 9:13 p.m. Let's get a word from our sponsor, the greatest shoe salesman from the back alleys of Krakow, Poland, or Lithuania, depending on your point of view, BB.
And cyber is a real domain of power. And cyber is a real domain of power.
Ladies and gents, busted yet again. Let's quickly talk Putin. Let's get this out of the way. I'm not going to show you this. Loyalty is low. The links are always below. Everything I use here will have a link. There's now talk, would Putin use a tactical nuke? Vladimir Putin, I mean, I don't even know where to begin on the garbage that's getting sprouted around the internet. I mean, it's utterly and totally ridiculous. So I've got to check these sound levels. In fact, let's just stop for one little second. Apologies, how strange. It didn't quite seem right. Regardless, let's move on. Let's talk war in Ukraine. Do you remember when it all started and people said, you better watch out, Vladimir Putin's going to get you? Of course, we all remember the big picture. I will get a playlist up on YouTube showing all the stuff I've done on Ukraine. This is the grand chessboard. This, of course, is the battle for the control of Eurasia. And really, this is a war between America and Germany. This is what this real war is about. We've always known that Russia is a backwater. So is China. I've said repeatedly that Russia is a joke militarily. Now you've seen it for yourself. A bunch of Ukrainian half-wits with Javelin and anti-tank missiles and the British version have basically stopped the advanced dead. The Ukrainians are not wonder fighters. They are being told what to do by NATO, which is the combination of the Brits and American intelligence, which can detect possum farts, goat farts, and various other farts from outer space. They can spot individuals, give you exact details on where the enemy is, the number of the enemy. Their communications is totally compromised. To think Putin ever had a chance is ridiculous. And I'm going to show you Scott Ritter, that congenital pedophile idiot who was quite famous back in the early 2000s for talking about Iraq and its lack of weapons of mass destruction. He seemed a good guy at the time. Then he turned out to be a bit of a pedo who was jerking off to allegedly a 15-year-old, but which turned out to be a detective. He's now running around screaming about how clever and cunning and amazing and wonderful Putin is. Another friend of Run Uns and a bunch of half-wits that are getting paid to promote this garbage. I want to make sure we have a memory so we can remember what these people said. I told you from the beginning, as have others, that Putin is a joke. He was put in there by Kissinger and associates. Zelensky's a rat. Putin's a rat. They're all a bunch of rats. All they do is work for the World Economic Forum. Putin has never set a foot or said a word about Klaus and the gang. He followed every single instruction on COVID. The guy is a fraud and it should be blatantly obvious. Now he's chucking a hissy fit. Him, Germany and China were getting together along with Israel to rule Eurasia, and now the party's over. Bibi's out of the picture so far, but I mean, can you kill Bibi? It's impossible. He's got 9/11 lives, if you know what I mean. So as we watch this unfold, Putin really has no choice. He's going to have to use a tactical nuke. He's not going anywhere. He's going to have to be offered asylum in somewhere like Switzerland, where he can retire and kiss little boys on the tummy and count his billions or his hundreds of millions. I mean, how much of the billions he gets to keep is anyone's guess. But he's done his job and robbed the Russian people blind while claiming to have fixed up all those horrible Jewish oligarchs, when in fact all he did was replace his personal hatred for a few of them with more Jewish oligarchs, or allegedly Russian Jewish oligarchs. Point is, he's always been a fraud, and the fact that it took me till late 2016 to finally admit I'd been conned, I still can't believe in 2022 people can't see through Vladimir Putin. Of course, his long relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, the combination of the trading bloc they were building there with both Iran, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, Iran and China. For those of you that watch regularly, I don't have to go into this. Constant articles about how close Russia and Israel were and how wonderful it was, the closeness of the relationship with the Chinese Communist Party and Israel and Russia. And I mean, all the internet talking heads missed it. I mean, you can't make this shite up. Can you, Whitney Webb, who missed it too? I want you to remember, because I'm certainly going to, every single person that pushed how wonderful Vladimir Putin was, even defended the Chinese Communist Party, and failed to mention that Rouhani was spending 6 years in Scotland hanging with Jack Straw, doing his PhD in Sharia law. It's all a little bit amazing, isn't it? What short memories everyone has. The point is, Putin's on the ropes, and it's certainly just going to be up to NATO / the BRICS / America how far it all goes. Ideally, they want to leave Putin in, snarling and growling like a big growly bear, grizzle, to scare the bejesus out of Europe, prevent the formation of that German, Russian, China axis, which is pretty much over, and make sure they can put 2 US bases in Ukraine. So the Ukrainians have to be scared witless. Their cities have been decimated in some cases, and they, of course, will be rebuilt under the UN Habitat Smart Cities program. They will be plush, they will be lush, they will be delicious, they will have beautiful self-driving vehicles, and a lot of money is going to be poured into there to see how wonderful it is. First we blow it up, don't we, Syria? Don't we, Iraq? Now the UN comes in and rebuilds, and perhaps in the future Russia can fight for Chinese contracts over the Middle East. Maybe, if they're good, if someone new comes in a positive spin, or else God knows what's going to happen. Vladimir Putin represents a clique. Remember, it's not just Putin. He's got a clique of people surrounding him. Armed forces, the intelligence community, oligarchs, And they're all a little angry because they're losing their bank accounts, their mistresses are leaving them, and quite a few Russian generals have been fired. The Russian generals fought back, in my opinion. It was the Russian generals, no one else, who killed good old Alexander Dugin's daughter, may she rest in peace. Along with shame I didn't get her Alistair Crowley-loving, half-witted father, but unfortunately they missed by the looks of things. Now he can deal with the tragedy of war. Putin cannot afford to lose. The snarling wolves will be circling him. He's probably got no choice other than to pull back and release a nuke to say, leave me the F alone. I would give it a 50-50 he's going to use a tactical nuke. Or they're going to do something to one of the reactors. Who knows? They may certainly even target some of the electrical infrastructure. He's already doing it. Maybe they'll even do something to do with power going into Poland and other places like that. It's a very, very spurious sort of shifting time. But Putin's got nowhere to go. So unless someone steps in and says, Vladdy, little pooty poot, we'll give you a few young boys, you can kiss their tummies, and you can retire where you go to get over your vodka and alcohol addiction in your Swiss spa. However, I don't think Putin's quite ready to go. All the hoo-ha about whether he's a body double, I actually say it's quite possible because body doubles are used. Saddam Hussein was legendary for him. His son Uday had one. And you can watch a great movie called The Devil's Double, which will actually talk about that. And the Germans would actually do the plastic surgery. They had a very close relationship with some of these dictators. You never hear about that. The wonderful Germans, and I'm speaking generally, of course, not the German people, but their government leadership and their elites and their intelligence services. So they will have to step in and give Putin a way out. I don't think he's going to go. I think Putin's in love. I do think he is a Russian nationalist of sorts, despite his contradictions, and I don't think he's going to go easily. I do believe there's a good chance he will release a tactical nuke. And it's going to suit a lot of people's agendas. I want you to think about this. They always need a great news story. They always need something to lead with. And I think a tactical nuke, several kilotons, will do that very nicely. Chernobyl has shown that radiation levels are not that bad. And you got to understand that Chernobyl released a huge amount of radiation, 400 kilos of enriched uranium. That's a lot of radiation released, and there was talk that that was done deliberately. Certainly it was the most incompetent, ridiculous activity ever seen on Earth, what happened in Chernobyl, but certainly they came out praising what happens when you remove humans. So out of that area of the Ukraine, they removed all the humans and rare wolves returned, rare birds, rare bears, and they found that the radiation, despite being in pretty high levels, actually dissipated very quickly, and that, hey, it's not so bad. So it wouldn't surprise me if a tactical nuke gets released. It'll really get the media clickbait happening. It's going to distract people while the grand chessboard unfolding takes place. It's a very, very, very interesting time. So that's my view on Vladimir Putin. To all you idiots that pushed him relentlessly, we want to remind you of what you said and how long you stuck to it. And I hope you got paid enough. Remember John McAfee, when I got back from Iran and was in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, in early 2017, contacted me under the name Jeff Dahlgren, and he was sending me over $400 a week. I was on about $500 a week, and I said, I got to go after Putin. He said, if you go after Putin, you'll get no money. Screamed it at me over Skype. I hung up and told him to F off. These are drug effed, you know what. And I went from $500 to $50 literally overnight. So a lot of this is drug money laundering and drug money that's being used to pay off these clowns. And I don't think they have any shame in the likes of a guy like Scott Ritter, who is here with Judge Napolitano. And I'll give Judge Napolitano his due. He's sort of looking at Scott Ritter going, really? As Ritter is so utterly ridiculous. I mean, Putin's... I've never seen someone... Basically, Putin got his ass handed to him and he said, it's part of a cunning plot. It's all very good. It's pretty damned hilarious. But anyway, you know my views on Vladimir Putin. He's a rat. Zelensky's a rat. They're all a bunch of damn rats. They all work for the same people. It's the battle for Eurasia. I urge you to watch a coming playlist, which I will put on YouTube, in fact. Tomorrow I'm going to put it on YouTube. Get a nice Ukraine, what's going on playlist up. I'm sorry, I've been so busy with my little wheelbarrow. I'll show you what I mean. Yes, 'tis I moving my bed base with my trusty Illuminati wheelbarrow. The money's pouring in, ladies and gentlemen, and this is how I roll. Okay, let's move on to the Queen. God save the Queen. No, God save the King. A lot of you people couldn't care less, and neither can I, except for the fact that I was raised on the Crown as the Crown Colony Australia, and the head of Australia is not the Prime Minister. It is, in fact, the Queen, or now the King. We would sing, God save our noble Queen, long live our gracious Queen, God save the Queen, ma-na-na-na, Santa. I'm about to do a goodies episode. Yeah, the goodies. Who remembers that? We used to sing that once a week at Assembly. God save the Queen. I got the words wrong a little bit there. I know you Americans are laughing your ass off, but we were in the Crown Colony. I'm not exactly against the royals, apart from the fact they want to kill us all and lock us up just like Klaus does. I'm sure they fight and hate each other, and I know that Prince Charles is having a huge tiff with Israel and the American slash Zionist movement. We'll talk about that in a single second. The Queen, between a mohel, that's someone who cuts the foreskin off a penis, which is, of course, a despicable act of mutilation, and it is a despicable, completely unnecessary act of mutilation. And a Sieg Heil, what did Elizabeth really think of her Jewish subject? She didn't have Jewish friends, but she had very few close friends to begin with. In the end, British Jews loved the Queen for the same reason non-Jewish Britons did. She provided a sense of stability, a good, stable Taurus. Look, if you must have a queen, let it be Queen Elizabeth, if you must. Certainly stuck to her guns and annoyed King Charles relentlessly. And in fact, all the astrologers said Charles will never be king. Never. Well, my God, can you believe it? Astrology's wrong. Hell, I was meant to be a millionaire years ago, according to the stars and the tarot readers. And one would think it wasn't exactly scientific. But Prince Charles is finally king. He can talk to the trees, talk to the plants, and try to kill us all as he hangs out and goes on about climate change. Regardless, over 120 countries, but never Israel, did Queen Elizabeth II unofficial boycott. Prince Charles never went either. He was too busy hanging out with the Saudi kings and all that stuff because they put a lot of money in British banks and other things. The Brits have always been upset that they lost control of the empire. They always believed they could handle the Middle East much better than the Americans and the scummy Zionist movement, and that's why they have a big tiff. I want to read the letter, which many of you are very familiar with. This is Ynet News. This is a huge online Jewish journal, extremely honest. I keep saying to people, I get my best stuff from the Israeli press and Israeli/Jews. They are not a all-encompassing thing. Who do you think gives me some of my best info? Who do you think just wants to pay their mortgage just like you? Yes, there is Jewish power, as British Jewish activist Paul Ison will tell us. Yes, there is a problem. Clearly, it's a little bit more complicated than just Lord Yaakov, but we get it. Excuse me for 1 second. Just let me clear my throat. Jewish world, Prince Charles, actually, Ynet News did a great article where they said if we continue to make ripping off the goy a national sport, it's going to bite us in the butt. That was back in 2007. Ynet News, fantastic source of news. Very honest. You should reward honesty. Jewish world, Prince Charles later urges US to confront the Jewish lobby. Many of you know this, but let's quickly read this. Again, in a letter dated 1986 to a close friend, Prince Charles attributes Middle East unrest to the influx of foreign European Jews, expresses hope some US president has to have the courage to stand up and take on the Jewish lobby, and hints Jewish emigration to Israel is the root cause of terrorism. This is in 2017. This is very interesting, taking on the Jewish lobby. His friend, of course, was Sir Lawrence Vanderpost. Do we have a picture of him with Sir Lawrence? Those of you who don't know, Sir Lawrence Vanderpost wrote The Seed and the Sower, which became the great movie with David Bowie, surprisingly good in it. Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, about a Japanese prisoner of war camp. Sir Lawrence Vanderpost, highly decorated, British intelligence, born in South Africa. The Seed and the Sower, which became Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, who also wrote heavily on the Kalahari Bushmen, allegedly had an affair with a 15-year-old girl, and was very, very close friends with Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Gustav Jung, Jung. If you don't know your Jung, how are you going to pretend you're really clever at Georgetown sipping martinis? Jungian psychology, of course. Every Mason reads Jung. Jung would not approve of Masonry, neither was Prince Charles. Sir Lawrence Vanderpost told him to never join anything, including Masonry, and he never did. However, there, of course, is a Masonic orders all around him. You will have to decide what you think of Prince Charles yourself. I personally don't want a bunch of inbreds telling me what to do, and I love the US and its constitution. However, as we have a bunch of idiot children who continue to worship the royal family, I don't mean to be judgmental, but that's fine. Your psychology is that of a child who is projecting out all that is best onto you, onto two very fallible human beings, the king and the queen, and you couldn't get more fallible than Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles. However, if you're going to have a king and a queen, let it be Prince William and dear Kate, because they seem like a lovely couple, and all the old ladies can go, oh, she's so beautiful, and Prince William is so handsome. Let them have their thing. That's fine, but it's not for me. But it is a stabilising force, and if I had to be ruled over, I guess the British monarchy wouldn't be so bad in a monarchical constitutional parliamentary democracy. But this would assume, of course, the inbreds are actually strapping lads and ladies, and in the olden days they would be expected to travel, they would take risks, they would join the Royal Geographic Society and go to the Amazon, and they would be in the sciences, and we would clean the toilets, and they would progress humanity under Julius Evola and his concepts of sacred tradition. There is a managerial class, and they think they are it. I beg to differ somewhat. However, this is the way it is right now, and if you can play off Prince Charles and the Zionist movement, I say bring it the hell on. I'm going to ask you a question. Linked below is the fantastic, very difficult to find. It won't actually show up in searches, which is the brilliant Al Jazeera series on both the Friends of Israel, which is brilliant. I was in Iran when that came out. I nearly fell over and thought, oh my God, that's the end of Bibi. That's the end. The lawyer actually said, you reckon? I don't think so. And yeah, they're still here. They also did the brilliant series on AIPAC. That was Al Jazeera. Never been done before. Most of the planet's forgotten about it. It's linked below, and you will not find it in a search. However, I thought to myself, how the hell did Al Jazeera get that deep into Israeli intelligence, that deep into the Jewish lobby, that deep into AIPAC, that deep into the Israelis at the Israeli embassy in London? It was incredible. Well, now you know, when you see at the same time in 2017 they're accidentally releasing the leaked letter. It wasn't leaked. It was deliberately released to Prince Charles is going, I'm on your side. I'm on your side. Jolly good and tally-ho. I don't think I've ever heard beside myself. Let me know. Anyone else make that point? How the hell? Because MI5 and MI6 have had enough. In 2014, if you want to see a good movie with Ewan McGregor, I suggest you watch Our Kind of Traitor, where it goes into how it's virtually a documentary in the form of a movie where they were going and telling the City of London to stop laundering Jewish oligarch money out of Russia. And of course, people out of that group are just pouring money into the university systems, completely corrupting it, so on and so forth. So that's the interesting thing you could take up with, again, all the links are below, understanding how the breakup is happening. How Prince Charles, MI6 and that have assisted Al Jazeera to make those incredibly important documentaries on AIPAC and the Friends of Israel. They're incredible. That was the beginning of the end in some ways for the Israeli state and the political Zionist movement, because the Brits want their little empire back. They say we can control the Middle East better. How that fits into the grand narrative, exactly. I've got a few ideas. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not entirely sure yet. Again, if the internet was real, what would happen is we would have an articulate and incredibly good bunch of people coming together informally, pulling the threads to see if this all holds up, seeing if the narrative has legs. We don't have that anymore. They're too busy clicking on the clickbait and quoting Tucker Carlson or railing against Nancy Pelosi, that idiot, or AOC, because that's how you run things. And if they do drop a tactical nuke in Eurasia there and the Ukraine, which I believe is entirely possible, that of course will change the news cycle even more and keep things distracted. But I ask you to focus and go down and dig deep and demand your alt media star of choice dig a little deeper into Prince Charles and his fight with the political Zionist movement. Dig a little deeper, see where it takes you. And like the new June movie on the Frank Herbert book, very much the House of Windsor returning to the Middle East and Iraq. In fact, I did a video on that. It's in the playlist. In fact, I'll grab it for you before we move on to the next. Here we are. It's here. It is video 84. That's a damn good video. I enjoyed that video. I enjoyed making it. Invasion Ukraine, Prince Charles and the Israeli lobby. Ladies and gents, I urge you to give it a go. Give a dog a bone. Get a dog up, yeah. Invasion Ukraine, video 84 from December 14, 2021. Prince Charles and the Israeli lobby. I urge you to watch it. Let's now move on to... What are we going to move on to? We're going to move on to technology transfer. Very interesting. Wait for it. Okay, dear friends, if I'm looking a little sharper and calmer, the last week, wow, my brain's coming back. I can actually think. I can hold a concept in my head more than a couple of minutes. So I'm pretty stoked, and still got a bit of healing to do, but I think part of it is just moving on, but I also wonder about the electrical field in this house. I don't know. Regardless, I'm really happy I stayed in my new place for a night and was pretty stoked. Had a kitchen, wasn't preparing food by the toilet, couldn't get better than that. Anyway, let's now talk about technology transfer. This is very, very significant. This is good old Fox News. This is Mark Levine. This is a very good, again, it's linked below. What if America gave away highest technologies to its enemies? Now, it's only going to talk about the Clintons and the Bushes at this stage, but it's a start. They're going to move in. Of course, Rupert Murdoch's going to have to ask himself, because one of his best friends is Heinz Kissinger, and I noticed that the word Heinz Kissinger is not mentioned by this gentleman, but he came close. It's a good video because I liked his impassioned style and how he talked about what the hell's going on with the United States. And they're starting to finally admit, I mean, a 2-year-old could work this out, but finally the clown show is starting to say, hey, how did China get all this technology? If you want to look below, what does the truth sound like? You will see Major Jordan's diaries and you will see the report from Iron Mountain. It's in the links below. It's always linked below in any of my videos. And you will see how they create artificial enemies. And God willing, the United States is finally going to put a stop to it. I know many of you don't believe a word of it. I don't want to sound like a Q-tard, but I think something is up. I really do. I'm watching closely Bannon and all that crew. And we're going to talk a little 9/11 and a certain man called Rudy Giuliani. If he continues to be on Steve Bannon, you've got to start screaming. And if Bannon doesn't get rid of Giuliani and a bunch of other people, if we don't see a renouncing of 9/11 and all the Israeli firsters who are all around Bannon and Trump, we've got to stop these dog whistles and start demanding. It's up to you, America. It's up to you to get down to those rallies and start telling that clown show, Defense Intelligence Agency General Michael Flynn, that you want justice on 9/11. And first to be hung, and I mean this literally, the first to be hung. And a lot of people said, oh, but Giuliani did this in New York. He was very good. The first to be hung for crimes against humanity and the major terrorist attack is Rudy Giuliani, Heinz Kissinger, a whole bunch of them straight out of New York. Go to the gallows. We cannot forget. And just remember, Israeli Mossad was warning up to 3 months before that Muslim terrorists were going to fly aircraft into tall buildings. This is a private East India Trading Company parasite that is infected. It's not the KGB. It's not even the Mossad. It's not the CIA or the FBI. They have Hail Hydra. Watch Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I can help you find it. Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Brilliant. The whole conspiracy is completely laid out with Robert Redford and a whole cast of characters. It's the only stupid Marvel thing I really enjoyed. Captain America, the Winter Soldier. The entire conspiracy is in that movie. The whole thing. It's incredible. Let's watch a little bit of Mark Levine and you'll get to see what I mean.
And more consistent discussion about where this country's headed.
Apologies, let's start again. I just turned the sound up a little.
I think we need to have a deeper and more consistent discussion about where this country's headed. Not this hit and run stuff, not to cherry pick, but a more fulsome understanding of where we're going here. William Jacobson is a great professor. He's got a great
I got very excited for a minute. I thought he was actually going to say Heinz Kissinger or Israel, but no such luck, but it's still very good.
Website called Legal Insurrection, and I think this paragraph sort of sums it up for me.
Yeah, listen up. This is good.
There is a thin line in society between food and anarchy, freedom and repression, liberty and tyranny, safety and street violence. It's thinner than we want to admit, It's being pushed to its limits on purpose by
Really?
ideologues that want to deconstruct our society.
Well, you mean like Heinz Kissinger, best friend of Rupert Murdoch, head of Fox News. Wow, there's a bit of a dichotomy I can't quite understand, but anyway, let him go on.
Tearing down society is a dangerous game. That thin line is being obliterated in Europe, which put heavy reliance on Russian natural gas and so-called renewables, leaving those countries vulnerable to a gas cutoff, which Putin now is implementing as retaliation for Ukraine's sanctions. And what about the United States? This got me to thinking. In between our elections, a lot happens to this country that is not subject to elections and no longer subject to representative government. Did you support the hiring of 87,000 new IRS agents? Was that on some ballot somewhere? Did you support the complete disruption of energy independence and the complete attack on the combustion engine and automobiles and other vehicles that use gasoline?
Well, I've got an idea. Mark, why don't you ring your boss, Rupert Murdoch, and ask Rupert Murdoch to ask Heinz Kissinger, hey, Heinz, please ask your best friend Klaus and the World Economic Forum, why did you do all these things? Why did you try to destroy the US dollar when you released COVID and bring down the US economy? I'm sure it all makes sense somewhere along the line, but Heinz is getting a little bit of heat now, but I'm not sure it's enough. Let's move it along a little bit. It's actually a pretty good, no matter whether you hate Fox or whatever your politics are, it's actually a good little segment. What if America gave away highest technologies to its enemies? And it's really well presented. You can see this gentleman's not acting. He's actually a little bit concerned. I can almost imagine him going, geez, I now realize how bad this is. Oh my goodness. And he says the enemies within. And he's not just talking about AOC. Let's see how this unfolds. Let's skip to the next bit. Okay, we skip to this bit. This is quite good. It's not, it's not perfect, but it's quite good. We're getting there. The question is being asked in this little script, and it's gonna all the little Trump tards and the Fox News people. I hate them all. Just to let you know, I wouldn't watch MSNBC if you paid me. It's all garbage, but there's a lot of garbage going on at Fox too. Again. Heinz Kissinger is your sworn enemy. He is the number one plant, still going, still taking stem cells and baby's blood. He's still going strong. Kissinger and Associates, and best friends with Rupert Murdoch. So if you can explain that one to me, you're going to have to explain that one to me. Let's hear him go on. This is a good bit right here.
He didn't violate the Espionage Act, but I will tell you people who did violate the Espionage Act, certainly in spirit, if not in reality. So there's a leak to the Washington Post last week. Now, there were no leaks out of Mar-a-Lago and Donald Trump about classified information or even the existence of classified information to the Washington Post. But the Department of Justice, just like the Stasi, the East German Stasi of old, is leaking information to their effectively Pravda-like media, the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, and so forth. A document describing a foreign government's military defenses, including its nuclear capabilities, was found by FBI agents who searched former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence and private club last month, according to people familiar with the matter, underscoring concerns among U.S. intelligence officials about classified material stashed in the Florida property. So now you have the prosecutors and the investigators leaking about classified information that was not leaked at Mar-a-Lago by the former president or his staff to the media and for the entire world, while they're in court fighting the idea of an independent special master to go over their work and to see what documents they have a right to and don't have a right to. They already stole from him passports, attorney-client privilege information, tax information, other private information, medical information, clothing. They stole it, to use their phrase, from him. But do you remember Bill Clinton? Oh, yes. This is from the capitalresearch.org. As president, Bill Clinton essentially wiped out any strategic advantage the U.S. had by selling advanced U.S. missile technology to our enemy, the People's Republic of China. We should indict Trump, you see, because of what might have happened to his materials, who may have seen his materials. You even have some crazy people on MSNBC going on and on about how he probably gave the information to the Russians so they could kill American spies, or he sold it to his friends, or he's going to use it to blackmail. And these are media corporations that allow these crackpots on TV to make statements like this, undermining our country. What else did Clinton do? One of the key technological breaks China received, without having to spy to get it, was the deliverance of supercomputers once banned from export for security reasons. So in the case of Bill Clinton and his administration, we don't have to do what if. This did happen. Supercomputers underpin the technology of nuclear missile warfare. And not only for firing and controlling the missiles, a supercomputer can simulate a nuclear test and is thus critical to the development of nuclear warheads. But according to a Washington Post editorial, in the first 3 quarters of 1988, 9 times as many supercomputers were exported to China as during the previous 7 years combined. This is David Horowitz's point. According to the Wall Street Journal account from Clinton days, a bipartisan congressional inquiry found Beijing has stolen U.S. design data and so forth and so on, lacked security in the Clinton administration, and of course, satellite makers Hughes and Loral are criticized in significant part, all during...
Oh, yeah, ladies and gents, is there anything our little friend has missed? Israel's close relationship with China, Israel's total domination of the U.S. security industry, Israel is a global superpower in terms of its cyber, and on and on and on and on. If you don't know about this, please see some links below. Or better yet, please go to my must-watch playlist, just very, very briefly. If you go to my must-watch playlist, go to my YouTube site, and the playlist is called Must Watch Israel Penetrates U.S. Critical Infrastructure. Go and watch that playlist, and you will be a full bottle on just how bad it is and the long, extremely strong relationship between the Chinese Communist Party and Israel. Israel opened all the doors to let the CCP in, all their agents within Lockheed Martin and all these other high technology major players in the military-industrial complex. Israel has all the back doors. They code Windows, Intel, on and on and on and on. Watch that playlist. You will truly, truly be shocked. Let's let him finish.
In the Clinton administration, not a debate over documents. What if? This happened. More, Obama, Washington Times back in 2009. Obama recently shifted authority for approving sales to China of missile and space technology from the White House to the Commerce Department. Do you know why he did that? Because the Commerce Department is less involved in security and more involved in commerce than the White House itself. The president issued a little notice presidential determination, delegating authority for determining whether missile and space exports should be approved by China to Commerce Secretary Gary Locke. So they moved it from the White House to the Commerce Secretary. That's how serious they took it.
Goes on and on and on. Only one problem. Your boss is best friends with Heinz Kissinger and Kissinger and Associates, who really got this all going. We need that whole history, as you know. What would the truth sound like? We'd hear about the long history of subversion of the United States. We'd hear about the long history like the Silver Master spy ring. We'd hear about Harry Dexter White, Roosevelt's right-hand man. He went on to create the International Monetary Fund, a literal communist agent as it came out officially, how we need to reinvigorate the McCarthy, the incredible McCarthy, and see the popular culture correct the historical record. McCarthy was 100% right. The communists were riddled throughout the entire United States government and private industry. You had the Silver Master spy ring was in the topmost levels of the United States government. And I mean the top. And of course, McCarthy was vindicated by the Venona decrypts, which came out in the early 1990s. We need that whole history. The only one who came close is the academic Diane West, and she's a raving nut calling, Islamofascist. Islam is with the communist. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But she actually does good stuff on that long history, which carries on. I mean, you see the links between Harry Dexter White, Hans Morgenthau. Hans Morgenthau's calling for one world government. Who's his little best friend? None other than Heinz Kissinger. On and on and on. They wanted to turn Nazi Germany post-war into a agrarian agriculture, deindustrialize it. That was the Morgenthau plan. Well, you know what they did? They simply apply the Morgenthau plan in slow motion to the United States as they de-industrialized. America, you could have dominated this planet. They gave all the nuclear secrets away to the Soviet Union. They built up the Soviet Union. Major Jordan's diary shows it. This is basic stuff that your old media stars should, of course, be pushing night and day. But they won't, because that's actually how the truth sounds. Newt Gingrich here. We haven't seen this since Jimmy Carter. Let's just watch the first 5 seconds just to make the point.
Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich is author of Defeating Big Government Socialism. Joins us now to react. Newt, you're
big government socialism, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to hear mute, bouncing check Gingrich tell you about the Silver Master spiraling. You're not going to get that big picture of past his prologue, how you got from there to here. If you knew about the Silver Master spiraling, Nathan Gregory, Silver Master, born in China, Jewish parents, who learnt a perfect English accent in China, just wanders into the United States and just wanders into the US government. The Silver Master spiraling. You can just type that in, you'll find a ton of information. Why isn't that everywhere? Why isn't that taught in schools? Why isn't that in the movies? Why isn't Joseph McCarthy a legend right now? An imperfect man. But a man, maybe he went slightly overboard, but not that much overboard. And I think we need to have a little rethink about JFK and Eisenhower a little bit. Not completely, still love their stuff, but McCarthy did have a point about what was going on, even with Eisenhower and the infiltration of the US military. This has been going on, and Israel is front and center. Lachem, this Israeli outfit, its sole role was to source technology. And of course, they were giving that back to the Soviet Union at the time. Lachem, Rafi Eitan, who handled who? Jonathan Pollard. Jonathan Pollard didn't just get stuff for Israel. He actually was getting stuff to do with the Soviet Union. And they were sending all of that material back to the Soviet Union. That's why he got the maximum sentence, and really he should have gotten the death penalty when he gave away stuff such as the continuation of government process, which is as top secret as it gets amongst all the other stuff. He was taking suitcases out of the Office of Naval Intelligence. Suitcases. They were propping the doors open and the security guards were assisting him take suitcases. It was a joke. Jonathan Pollard was exposed a dozen times. He failed polygraph tests. They said he's a former cocaine addict, probably still on cocaine. He's a liar and a fantasist. Fire him. They didn't fire him. They increased his security clearances. How does that happen? Who has the power to do that? It's the same people that opened all the doors for China into the United States. Rafi Eitan, Lachem, when they got done, give Dick Cheney at least 1 point, they absolutely went after him, were furious. And of course, Rafi Eitan went on, resigned, and they disbanded the Lachem, and then Rafi Eitan went to where? He went to the BIRD, the Binational Industrial Research and Development Foundation, still going to this day. Who started all those groups? Heinz Kissinger, 1973. With good old Richard Nixon, that idiot initially, who started to work out what it was. And I must admit, Nixon was onto it, but when he finally worked out what was going on and went against Heinz Kissinger and Nelson Rockefeller, boom, out went Mr. Nixon. When you turn on your master, your Rockefellers and your Kissingers, boom. And of course, Watergate came out and all the stuff was pushed and the system went against the fool. However, he did some very good things. I was really impressed with his speeches and his writings, but there were huge holes in his knowledge. And it's a mixed bag with Nixon. Very interesting fellow, though. Really interesting. Really did work his way up. I think he meant well, but I think he was really handled. And when he finally woke up to Heinz Kissinger and his chief of staff, well, boom, that was the end of that. So we know what the truth sounds like, don't we? And none of these people will just give you the whole truth, particularly on technology transfer. As this goes along, right, you'll get over COVID a bit till the new one, and you'll start to understand as they make primacy, the electrical grid and so on, you instantly shut down an entire economy. It's instant martial law. It's a very, very dangerous time, to say the least. Okay, let's move on to the next bit. Let's talk about the BRICS. This is an excellent little production about the BRICS and its history, started by Goldman Sachs, of course. Remember, these are all the sworn enemies now of the United States, forming their own. Russia, China, Brazil, India, shaking a fist at evil America. Damn your petrodollar, go to hell. We're forming the BRICS. All started by Goldman Sachs. Council on Foreign Relations heavily in there. What would the truth sound like as we expose this garbage? These are employees of the East India Trading Company. What do we have? City of London, Rothschild, UK European banking cartel, Bank of International Settlements, Burns, Switzerland, going down into the foundation system, funds the think tanks, funds every political movement known to man. And then the Clinton foundations, the Soros foundations, right or left, they're all the damn same. And these are their employees. These are their actors. They're ugly actors who couldn't get a job in Hollywood with their scripts. Sometimes they go off, such as Saddam Hussein, such as Adolf Hitler, and they didn't do what they're told. These people are not independent operators. You cannot operate independently when you rely on the SWIFT system. You cannot operate independently when you have to use petrodollars. They can't just magically start using rubles and yuan and just think, oh, I can buy everything now with this. You know, the US 5th and 6th Fleet, and you're seeing how Russia's doing up against NATO, aren't you? This is very simple stuff. You've been fed so much horsepuck in, it's going to really come out as you realize just how bad and backward joke Russia is. It's a joke. It's fake. China is fake. The fake enemies propped up by the East India Trading Company, sucking out the tech. The United States should be dominating, God willing, dominating the planet with its constitution front and center and actually following it. Get rid of the foundation systems, the think tank systems, the banking and financial class, not just the Fed, the whole damn thing. Remember, they wanted to forge the multipolar world order. If we see the US stay in Eurasia, they won't be able to forge the multipolar world order. It means something has changed. Remember, that vast managerial class of the United States, billionaires and millionaires, they're going to lose everything. Jeff Bezos is going to run it all. Everyone's getting a section as they break up the Planetary Trading Guild into each section to lock people up in the UN smart cities and probably vaccinate them to death. And there's going to be good old Jeff Bezos and people like a Fred Smith and FedEx and all these other companies are looking, going, the centralization of the means of production, the means of transaction, the means of movement, all into one single company or just several, all owned by the same people. They're not happy about it. They will fall into our laps and they are going to respond to pressure. So let's watch Rupert Murdoch and let's watch eventually Heinz Kissinger's going to come out. You wait for the narrative to change. It's going to come out. It's not a dog whistle, I don't believe, but be aware of dog whistles. Be very cautious. The data analytics are extremely powerful. Let's see if they get away with this. But that is a very, I highly recommend it. It is 13 minutes and 33 seconds. Oh, that'll get the number crunches going. And the CFR's in there. Oh, yes, it's wonderful. It's a really good little rundown of the BRICS. And it's actually... CNBC is actually telling you something. Read between the lines. It's an expose, looking just positive and neutral, but it's actually exposing something very, very blatant. Remember, they want to forge larger and larger trading and military blocks. That's what they do. Hitler was supposed to form the United States of Europe. That hasn't panned out. That was in the 1930s that was meant to happen. No, 1940. By 1947, Stalin, North Asia, Hitler, United States of Europe, Mao, South Asia, and David Ben-Gurion forming the Federated States of Greater Israel. That's how far behind they are. Are they all powerful? This has been a real cluster F for these people. They are really struggling to get through. The US is the only thing that will stop them. The US with its strong constitution front and center. If the US will not, that's you, America. That's you, the ordinary people and their managerial class. If you do not put your constitution front and center and use your incredible military might, plug all the holes and start saying not just the right rhetoric, but the actual action, I'll start with the execution or the heart attack death. No, I don't want Heinz Kissinger to die peacefully in his bed. No. I want Heinz Kissinger to face some sort of judgment. So keep the stem cells flowing in, keep the baby's blood flowing in. He's got to go down along with them all. Rockefeller, banking cartel, CFR, Trilateral Commission, Roundtable Groups, Club of Rome, all of them, Davos and Bilderberg. We want the whole conspiracy. I urge you to what BRICS is up to now. It's all breaking down. But let's see. These people are deadly. They are dangerous. They released a virus. Let's just clarify something very quickly about Donald Trump, the Coup effect, and people thinking it's all scripted. It is. That's my starting point. But it's not all scripted. They lose control all the time. But always your default position is a script. But just consider this, please. Please consider this. South China Morning Post. All right. This was 20th of April 2020. The US dollar is standing in the way of a truly global monetary response to the coronavirus crisis. The dollar's dominance denies the IMF the right to act as a global lender of last resort with the SDR, sovereign drawing rights. That's actually the electronic sovereign drawing rights distributed ledger technology. Watch video 5 in my Watch playlist, Trump versus COVID. The SDR is the electronic sovereign drawing rights distributed ledger technology. That's why Putin went after the Ukraine too, because it's based on your resources and data, your population, your education level, and you can get drawing rights off the Bank of International Settlements, ESDR, DLT. That's the wholesales for the big boys and the big girls. Then we get the central bank digital currencies, which is it's probably going to come in this year. Instead, the world's reliance on the dollar risks an erosion of confidence in national currencies as central banks print more of them. This is so profound. This is when Trump was in. South China Morning Post. The US dollar standing in the way of a truly global monetary response to the coronavirus crisis unless the pandemic becomes so widespread and costly as to overwhelm US opposition. Donald Trump was brought in to facilitate the withdrawal from NATO, the withdrawal from Eurasia, the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and the withdrawal from the Middle East. That was his job. He's such a narcissist. He was uncontrollable. It was major warfare. Heinz Kissinger comes and says it's the war between the Jews and the non-Jews. They sacked Bannon. Bannon went after ZTE and said, we're going to bring down the main wholesaler. We're going to bring down the Chinese economy. In worked Heinz Kissinger and Jared Kushner, the rat in the White House, waved the compromising pictures with Trump with his PP out. And suddenly the genius Steve Bannon's out, a genius with major flaws, I might add, and Heinz Kissinger's there going, oh, it's a war between the Jews and the non-Jews. Suddenly, what happened? Instead of bringing down the CCP, what happened? What happened instead? There were no sanctions of any meaning put on. They increased trade to China to this day. That's what happened. That was Heinz Kissinger and the rat Jared Kushner. All right, Trump was uncontrollable. You can read every single account. I know people that know Roger Stone, all right, and they've given me intimate details. You know when they claim when Donald Trump said to Megyn Kelly there was blood coming out of here and blood coming out of there, and then they claim just after that Roger Stone was fired. No, Roger Stone did resign. And the words he had to say about Trump was that he's an effing idiot, he's a fool. I'm being serious. I heard this firsthand. And then, of course, you saw Roger Stone going on when Steve Bannon was pardoned and they were making the documentary. Roger Stone is screaming, to hell with Trump, bring him down, all that stuff. I mean, think about it. Trump is uncontrollable. That's good because he loves publicity and he loves being the center of attention and he loves the adulation of the crowd. So if the crowd will demand, the data analytics will show, and his minions at DIA, the General Flynn's and the Steve Bannons understand, we know we don't want Rudy Giuliani anywhere near it. We want justice for 9/11. If you will tell them and scream and yell and attend the rallies, they will change. Trump is the man. He's a complete idiot, but he's our effing idiot, me included. You need to get hold of him because he loves the adulation, and I believe he will go after the right people. You saw in the last video, there's something going on with Israel and 9/11. Let's see what happens. I want you to think about that South China Morning Post. Bringing down the US dollar is standing in the way of a truly global monetary response to the coronavirus crisis. They were panicking over Trump. You're not meant to build the economy up. He started building it up. He was meant to be into a welfare state, and they were going to collapse into the multipolar world order, the US out of Eurasia, the US out of Afghanistan, the US out of the Middle East. Remember, he said he's going to pull them out of NATO. And what was meant to happen? They were meant to develop North America and South America and have that region. And they would then bring in a Roosevelt-style rebuilding program after the collapse. And Donald Trump didn't play ball. And so they got rid of him another way. All right, but he was still not fully under control. There was a problem. Rupert Murdoch started turning against him, which is, of course, Heinz Kissinger, their boy, and they got rid of him. But then, look, the Pentagon is running things. Biden isn't running anything. And now they're in Eurasia. Instead of Afghanistan, that's fine. They're going to sit in Ukraine. And the dumb sucker Putin's done the business. So that BRICS little video there is fascinating. The Federal Reserve, this date on this is, where is the date? Where's the date? Why is there no date on this? About the Fed SM service, thanks to the magical unicorn. I need to find out the date of this. It's very important. Okay, I can literally not find a date for this. About the Fed Now service. So this is if the Federal Reserve Services.org. The Fed Now service is a new instant payment service that the Federal Reserve banks are developing to enable financial institutions of every size. Let me get myself out of there. Of every size and in every community across the US to provide safe and efficient instant payment services in real time around the clock every day of the year. Through financial institutions participating in the Fed Now service, businesses and individuals will be able to send and receive instant payments conveniently, and recipients will have full access to funds immediately, giving them greater flexibility to manage their money and make time-sensitive payments. Consistent with the Federal Reserve's historical role of providing payment services alongside private sector providers, the Fed Now service will provide choice in the market for clearing and settling instant payments, as well as promoting resiliency through the redundancy. Financial institutions and their service providers will be able to use the service as a springboard to provide innovative instant payment services to customers. We will update this page as we have more information about this new service, which is under development and will continue to evolve. Launch timing. Basically, this is the implementation of central bank digital currency. This is the wiping out of the retail banks. They're getting ready for the collapse. You will go directly to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is going to directly deal with you, as we've said. This is direct from the Magical Unicorn. If you don't know who he was a major trader in crypto. I've seen him for his company make $240,000 in a day. I joked and said, "Hey, look, I made $12 on my Ethereum." He said, "Hey, I made $240,000." I laughed my ass off, but that's for the company he works for. He's well in there at the wholesale level. Implementing the Fed Now service in an efficient and safe manner remains a high priority for the Federal Reserve. The Fed Now service will launch in 2023 and will be deployed in phases so that the initial service can be launched expeditiously with additional features and enhancements released in stages after the initial launch. This phased approach will allow for adjustments and improvements in response to industry needs or changes in technology. So there you go. So this is just the beginning, and eventually you'll see a wiping out of the retail banks as they phase it in. Currently it's between you, your institution, to the Fed, to the receiver's institution, and to them. But eventually they will simply remove completely that middleman of the retail banks. They're gone. That's the plan. We'll see how it unfolds, but this is the beginning of the end. They can never get rid of cash, not yet, because the cashless society needs continuous electrical current. Without electricity, it doesn't work. So cash will still be king for some time to come. We already have a form of central bank digital currency. It's called a credit card. In fact, it's almost identical, basically, in how it works and how it's tracked and how it's traced. But now we are seeing the foolhardiness of the stupid crypto system, where people still think they're going to be billionaires, forgetting that the trillionaire banking cartel wouldn't go, "Oh my goodness, LSA, Lord Rothschild, jolly good, we forgot about the internet and that dreadful Bitcoin. LSA, how terrible, looks like we're doomed." I don't think so. As we all know, United 200 made Bitcoin, not some Japanese guy that no one knows the identity of. It's just so ridiculous. You're not going to win against the trillionaire banking class who have control at the moment of the US 5th and 6th Fleet and the arm of the military-industrial complex to enforce contracts and to enforce how things will flow. They will enforce access to resources. Money is irrelevant. The system's never made sense since the mid-1970s. It was ridiculous from the start. All that really mattered is supply of goods and services equaling how much money you release into the system. Therefore, you can release as much money as you want, as long as you have access to goods and services. And you do that when you are the greatest military industrial power in the world. That is the United States, but you are infected. You're looking without, but you've got to look within. And even Levine said that in his video. So here we see coming of the Federal Reserve System. We're at that point now. It's going to be very interesting. I still believe it will be gentler than we think. Even the elect will be deceived if that were possible. This system will be implemented over the next 10 to 20 years. Again, the great worry has always been, remember, what does the truth sound like? The great worry is they would instigate the multipolar world order. So when people like Bannon say end the Fed, I worry that that means bringing the US back and ending the Fed and simply implementing a new system, withdrawing the US out of, like, the BRICS will go forward and the US will have its own system. Then we know it's a fraud. However, Bannon has said he's against all this secession and that the US must remain intact. Take him at his word so far. And we see the US not withdrawing. As long as the US does not withdraw and continues to project its power, it's all falling apart for the international banking cartel. It's falling apart. But let's see, let's keep a close eye. Don't let your guard down. If Bannon does something good, go, thanks very much, Steve. Here's next on the list. Now we want this. We want to arrest Heinz Kissinger. We want the exposure of 9/11, and we want it now. Let's move on to the next. Okay, this is our conclusion. What does the truth sound like? We're pretty much done. On this particular episode, we've kept it almost under an hour. It'll be a little bit over. This is a fan. Thank you to the person that sent this to me. Merchant and Masonic networks in 18th century colonial India. This is fascinating. Let's read the start. This article aims at exploring the role played by Masonic lodges and networks in the commercial economy of colonial India in the 18th century. The first Masonic lodges came to India and flourished in the wake of the East India Company, the trading company that had been granted a monopoly on East Indian trade by a royal charter, but it really got going under Queen Victoria and Rothschild. According to the membership list, Freemasonry was particularly popular among the merchant classes operating in India. The study of Masonic and commercial networks has a lot to teach us about what held the British Empire together. The study of Masonic and commercial networks, Kissinger and Associates, has a lot to teach us about what held the British Empire together, especially if we are with David Carradine to understand the empire as a, quote, an entire interactive system, one vast interconnected world. I'll repeat that to you. You ready? The study of Masonic and commercial networks has a lot to teach us about what held the British Empire together, especially if we are with David Carradine to understand the empire as, quote, an entire interactive system, one vast interconnected world. What did we say in the last videos? Understanding Alan and John Foster Dulles, both CIA, State Department. They went in with Sullivan and Cromwell, and they would go in the Mr. Fix-Its and facilitate. They founded the Council on Foreign Relations. Who took over their roles? Kissinger and Associates. They do the same thing. It's the private commercial network, an entire interactive system, one vast interconnected world. That's what the truth sounds like. So let's repeat this again. Are you ready as we wind this up with the conclusion? As we end the conclusion, remember Ukraine, the battle for Eurasia. Good old Zbigniew Brzezinski, founder of the Trilateral Commission, good friends with Heinz Kissinger. The truth sounds like this. As we watch the clickbait go backwards and forwards, as we watch a right-left dialectic being put forward, Nancy Pelosi's destroying America, Joe Biden's senile, Hillary Clinton and Obama are drinking sperm in their cooking bunker, satanic worship, child adrenochrome, child sacrifice bunker. As we see them talking about Trump-tards versus libtards, as this beautiful dialectic, this fake dialectic has been set up. No one is talking about the bankers. The only one to come close is, of course, Steve Bannon, who I will mildly tolerate and I believe might come good. Maybe. The times have changed. The tension's on. The managerial class are rebelling. Hence why they bought out WikiLeaks. Edward Snowden. Snowden is directly involved with Kissinger and Associates. Wait for the video. That's why he went in and didn't talk about Russia. He didn't talk. Has he had much to say about the World Economic Forum? He's been on there mumbling a little in Russia. Okay. He hasn't said a word about Israel's cyber technology juggernaut. His little groupies aren't saying anything. Glenn Greenwald isn't saying anything. Nothing about Snowden adds up until you realize he's a member of that Kissinger and Associates, whether he knows it or not. Who is his handler? What's going on there? So you have Assange, you have Snowden, you have WikiLeaks, you have the Panama Papers, the Pandora Papers, the Jeffrey Epsteins, but no one goes to jail. They just killed off the low-end Smurfs, just like they did with the Rosenbergs and the nuclear secrets. Killed a couple of low-end Smurfs off. It was unheard of because they're just telling the network to shut their mouths. This incredible network. We just heard about it. This interconnection of commercial interests. This is what the truth sounds like. It's Rothschild, City of London. This is the simple version. City of London. What did we say in the last video? Those all elite German families of Europe, all of Europe and the Germans. Then we have the Bank of International Settlements, Frankfurt, all the old banking system and old families of Europe and the UK. What else do we have? We have the foundation system, which then goes down into what? Into the think tanks. The think tanks like the Council on Foreign Relations, like the Trilateral Commission, like Carnegie, like the Lowy Institute. They're all funded by the same people. They write policy, in this case, in the United States. You have all the history of the roundtable groups. That is what the truth sounds like. Cecil Rhodes, funding Club of Rome, Chatham House, Royal Institute of International Affairs, Davos, Bilderberger. That's who we should be talking about. Isn't that plainly obvious? And yet look at the ridiculous dialectic they've set up. They want to run us into the UN Habitat Smart City gulag system. These people are actors. They are losing control. Managerial class, nationalist class are rebelling. We admit that at the highest levels, they're not running YouTube channels. It might take them a little while to push the right issue. Let's see what happens. I believe there is some positive stuff going on. But we must be cautious. We can neither be cynical and belligerent, nor can we be an idiot Q-tard, trust the plan. We have to just observe what we see, understand the big picture, know what the truth sounds like. And if you're in the United States, or no matter where you are, I can't do much, but you can in the United States. You can attend those rallies, you can make up simple, understand technology transfer, understand that Windows is core coded. All the Microsoft products are core coded in Israel. Intel and its chip design, all done in Israel. Now you begin to understand how the CCP got in. Now you begin to understand all of the hacking. You notice the stories about the hacking have dropped off a bit. I remember when the big backdoors in Windows were shut down in June 2020. That's when it happened. I stopped getting blue screens literally every 5 minutes with one update. I believe things are changing. I believe when they shut down the power into Texas, they were moving backdoor material out of the system. So let's not let the dialectic form like this. We know who the enemy is. Bankers. Bankers. We want the history of the roundtable groups. We want the history of the foundation system, whether it's the Clintons, whether it's Soros, Kissinger and Associates. It's a private network, the East India Trading Company. And if we can get that narrative out there and force it out there, and Alex Jones has to know if he won't push that narrative, the correct narratives, then there will be some very angry patriots paying him a visit, and he won't be worried about Hillary and Obama and the left coming after him. Just remember, no one has ever touched Alex Jones in his life, ever. His bank accounts work. He's richer than ever. I'm being persecuted. They're taking me to court. It's a joke. The man is so loaded, it's ridiculous. He's given unlimited free advertising. He's pushed relentlessly by the media. Hillary and Obama are calling him out. All right, oh, Lord, pray for me, he says, as he makes another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars in cash, and people don't get it. No one shoots his windows out. No one goes to his, smashes the windows and harasses him at his work. Now that happens to everyone else but Alex Jones. People must wake up to interactive internet activities. They've got to wake up to this whole Shadowgate process, the data analytics. We need the truth. That's what the truth sounds like. Banking cartels, roundtable groups, foundation system funding the think tanks which write the policies all over the world. These are private groups, private enterprise. All right. And they keep telling you that government is bad. No, I love government. I love big government. As long as you are involved in the citizenry, it is the only way you can speak. Do not let them tell you to take away big government. But what you want is a transparent government, an answerable government that you must directly be involved in. And then we destroy the transnational corporate network and the private banking class, and get control of the printing money and control of the US military-industrial complex and take the planet over. Just screaming and whining about it isn't going to save us. We need to have a plan. We need to be able to speak the truth. And then you have to say to people what you don't want. What don't you want? You don't want that. You don't want that. Correct? So we've got to start using the right language. We've got to start using the right rhetoric. And we've got to say what we actually do want. What we actually do want. It's no point just whining. What's the plan? We need new popular culture. We need new institutions. We need to think about things deeply. We need to get into the education system, which is happening. The precinct system, what Bannon's been doing is very important, but it's only part of the problem. At what point is the rhetoric going to match action? Banking cartels. Every single stupid word out of those people's mouths must be the international banking cartel. They've been throwing bones. Who gives a hoot about Nancy Pelosi and that friggin' piece of garbage, Hillary Clinton and Obama? Who cares? But they keep talking. They keep that narrative. Not enough. You tell them, we want the big fish. You're investigating a crime. You don't want these little fish. You want the big fish. And we know what that is. The international predatory borderless loan sharks. They'll sacrifice Jews. They'll sacrifice us all. They don't care. These people are an elite and they feel they are born to rule and they must tell us what to do and they must lock us up and they must cull the world's population. We know, but we need the solutions. What do we do with the burgeoning population control? We have to raise the standards of living. We have to raise the standards of education and educate people. When you raise the standard of living, when you educate women, they're not just sitting there pumping out babies. You want quality over quantity. It can be done in a benevolent fashion if we all get involved. It's not over tomorrow. This is a long war, and we will win this battle. Winning the war is a separate matter and a very long process. Very long. Even the elect will be deceived if that were possible. Lucifer comes as an angel of light, and the final test as they seduce us into this system, communitarian law and smart cities, believe me, it looks beautiful. It sounds correct. I don't want to breathe in car fumes. I'd love to see battery. I want all that fusion technology, all that high tech they've hidden away. I want it to come out. And we better be very careful if they get what they want and they can form that multipolar world order. If they can release another biological warfare weapon. If they can start a limited nuclear war in Eurasia and they can pull off what they want to pull off. And they can form the multipolar world order, look out. That may well be the end because people will be seduced by the development. They will be seduced by the good times as they release the technology and give the lollies to the kiddies. Us. Can't allow that to happen. The only thing between us and them is a powerful military-industrial complex of the United States following its constitution. There are people out there running around in large groups telling you it's all hopeless. Everyone's corrupt. Don't go to the CIA. Don't go to the FBI. Don't involve yourself in the intelligence community. Don't talk to the military. You can't trust the police. Demoralize. So you just sit online bitching and whining, passive and wondering what to do. Don't buy it. Good people are everywhere. The system overall is corrupt, but it's still full of good people who have wives and children and mortgages, and they want a future for their kids, whether they're in Israel, in Europe, the UK, Australia. They're after all of us. They didn't spare the Jews of Europe, and they sure as hell won't be sparing the Jews of the planet right now. We're all going into that UN smart city. So we've got to identify the enemy. We've got to repeat it over and over and over and over and over again and force the narrative out there and start calling out the clown show media stars and alt media stars that continue to make the issue a right-left dialectic, woke versus conservative, cultural Marxist versus conservative. This is about the banking cartels, and they're going to push issue after issue. The next one might be a tactical nuke. If they pull something off big, just freaking ignore it and just keep focused at the enemy, keep focused at the target like a laser and just push in your own way. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with the great F. Scott Fitzgerald. My move is going well, and soon, in the next couple of weeks, I will be in my new little studio, and I am really, really stoked and happy, and I'm looking forward to it. I was going to do a thing on 9/11, but there wasn't enough time. I want to remind us, in particular, Rudy Giuliani, a vast and disgusting, vile criminal, partly responsible amongst about 200 other people in New York with the carrying out, the coddling and the preparation, carrying out and covering up of 9/11. And unfortunately, a friend heard Steve Bannon and Alex Jones speak glowingly about someone directly involved in selling that steel to China in an attempt to cover it up. There are just so many things about Bannon which are very hard, if not impossible, to overlook. You've got to get in there and slap him across his coke-addicted, alcoholic face and tell him, no, there is no place in this fight for Rudy Giuliani and a whole host of people, and anyone, including Millie Weaver and Gavin Wentz and Tor, who hang around someone like Rudy Giuliani. That's you, Bergie. You better quit it, because you're associating with a vile piece of scum. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with the great Scott F. Fitzgerald and, of course, the great Bill Cooper. Ciao for now. See you soon. Today's date is the 12th of September 2022, and sincere condolences to the 3,000 people that lost their lives on 9/11, the people that suffered in sickness and ill health afterwards, the million in the Middle East dead as a direct result of the implementation of the PNAC, the Project for the New American Century, and the Odo Genome Plan. We will keep its memory alive. We will get people together, and over time, we will win this battle. The war, not so sure about. Talk to you later. Ciao for now. Horo Fez Jumpalagi, Jumpananti, Brendan O'Connell, south of the border. I inch ever closer to the Holy Land, to the heavenly Jerusalem, America. F. Scott Fitzgerald, quote, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. One should, for example, be able to see that things are hopeless and yet be determined to make them otherwise. This philosophy fitted on to my early adult life when I saw the improbable, the implausible, often the impossible, come true."
What is our common bond truly? Freedom. Freedom. Without freedom, you can't be a Christian no matter what denomination you belong to. You can't be a Buddhist. You can't own a donut shop. You can't drive from here to Oregon. You can't be an American because that's what it's all about, and it's the only thing that it's all about. Nothing else. Nothing else. It's about freedom. Only freedom.